everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be playing with a couple of the Spellbinders June monthly clubs and alcohol inks. Now I discovered a new technique that is not really a technique, but just wait for it. We're going to start off pretty innocently. It's going to look like just your normal everyday alcohol ink technique. And I'm using the air blower from Tim Holtz. And to the side, you'll see that I also have the Splatter Brush. And I had always forgotten that I had the Splatter Brush. So because I didn't have anything else handy, I decided to use it as just a regular brush. And I wasn't really happy with what I was getting, so I decided I'm just going to play with the Splatter Brush. And I have some alcohol off to the side that I was pouring onto my glass table. I don't really recommend you do that. That's not really what you should do. You should probably have a little bowl, or I have some in a little dropper that I couldn't find. So that background is pretty cool looking, but I don't know. I was going for something a little more beachy, more watery. So I decided to erase everything. And you can do that by just putting alcohol onto a paper towel. And once I did that, I was getting kind of that beachy effect that I was going for. And so then this is what I ended up doing. I took that splatter brush again and just was using alcohol to, I don't know. I don't really know what I was doing. But at the end of the day, I kind of liked it. And here I'm actually using the splatter brush as you theoretically are supposed to. And I splattered some of the ink and some of the alcohol. And I think it's pretty cool looking. Now, was this a technique? Not really, but I'm going to call it a technique. All right, so now I am making what I thought was going to be a background for one of my cards. And the silver stuff is mixative. And I wasn't really happy with what I was getting. So I, again, took my brush and making what really looks like a hot mess right now. But once I splattered it, I kind of thought, it's looking pretty watery. It's pretty cool. So, and by the way, I'm starting everything off with blending solution on my YUPO paper before I put the inks down. That's usually what I do when I play with alcohol inks. Now, this one, I was just using two colors, and these are two colors that you normally probably wouldn't use together, red and green. I did bring in a little bit of yellow. And I'm sorry I'm speeding through this. I'm trying to get to actual making of the cards too. And I liked this background. That's actually pretty. But if you've learned anything about me, I'm just going to keep going even if I shouldn't. And so I again put alcohol onto the splatter brush, and then I thought maybe I'll just put the ink on the glass surface too and pick it up with the brush. And I did that with the red and the green. And by the way, I will have all of the alcohol ink colors listed in my blog. You can find a link below to that blog post. So as I'm doing this, little splatters are happening kind of naturally. And that was another background that I thought was pretty cool. All right, so this is my last background for this video. And that was looking pretty cool. I could have left it, but no, I'm just going to keep going. I can't tell you how many times I have a background that I love and I just can't stop. And then, you wish you could go back in time. So this is one of them. It's just a mess. And I'm taking my brush and I don't even know what I was thinking at this point. It's awful. So I tried to wipe it, and even wiping it, it just looked awful. But I'm going to keep on going because I am not going to throw this YUPO paper away. And, well, no, here, I just can't stop. I'm going. I'm still going. I'm like the Energizer Bunny, still going. And maybe I'm done now. I'm done. Okay. So here's that cool background, the first background I made, and we're going to use that with the new 3D embossing folder. It's called Scattered Shells. This is the 3D embossing folder of the month for June. And I think I've done this in videos before where I put YUPO paper into 3D embossing folders. It's one of my favorite techniques. So I'm going to send this through my die cut machine. And because it's a 3D folder, I am using the new universal plate system on my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Now here I took it out and you can't see anything. You really can't see the design, right? So I pulled out my sanding block. This is a great tool to have in your stash, especially when you work with embossing folders. And I'm just going to start sanding. And as soon as I start sanding, you are going to see this design come to life. And it's really fun when you're doing it, because even in person, I couldn't really see the design until I started sanding. So it's just a really easy technique. And there are certain spots where, because it's 3D, some spots are higher than others, and you might need to go in a couple more times, maybe with the edge of the sanding block to get more detail. But this was just super fast. Couldn't have been easier. So here I have almost finished it. I've used the Seahorse Kisses Sentiments hot foil plate with satin champagne foil, which is a great color foil to use when you have craft cardstock on your card. And speaking of craft, I love using these fashion taupe embellishments from Spellbinders. They're also just a really great color. And I'm also using the fashion topaz. These are like little colored pearls. And because it's this ocean shell scene, these pearls were just a great finishing touch. So there is my first card. Easy peasy. I really love it. I think it's very pretty and it's very natural looking. All right, here is the small die of the month, Dancin' Octopus and Friends. There is the most adorable octopus. There's a jellyfish, there's a starfish, and there's a little post for a sign. And then there's some coral or seaweed, whatever you want to make from it. All right, here's that last alcohol ink background that I made, and I'm going to cut the 3 pieces of the octopus. And it was at this point that I realized that that back part is meant to make the octopus dance or jiggle. I hadn't really realized that until I cut them out. And I wasn't really going for the jiggly dancing octopus for this card. Sometimes you want to jiggle, sometimes you don't. So in my haste, I had cut out all 3 pieces from this. And now I'm trying to figure out, can I get another piece out of this background? And I'm going to try. And part of his head is missing, but that's okay because I'm going to layer him. And the reason I'm layering it is I'm not going to use that little jiggly piece as a back, but I still just want more dimension to this octopus than just the 2 other pieces. And I also decided it looked much better on just a cleaner background. This is an old stamp from MFT. I think it's called Thick and Thin background. It's a red rubber stamp. I think it's retired. But I found it in my stash. I had stamped it maybe a year or 2 ago, and it ended up being perfect for this little alcohol inked octopus. So I'm just assembling my card base. And now I'm going to assemble the octopus. I'm going to glue those first 2 layers together. And I love these colors together. I mean, I think you know by now, if you've watched my videos, I love greens and blues. So this is right up my alley. All right, so it's really easy to attach. Now for me, I only attach the head because I like to have a little bit of dimension. And by not attaching the legs to each other, or the tentacles, whatever you want to call them, you know, it just creates more dimension. I'm cutting off more of the head of that bottom part just so, because I'm going to offset it. So I don't want any part of his head sticking out. That would be creepy. Here I'm making the sign, and there's a sign. You can say, I think there's yay and hey. So I chose for my sign to say hey, and I just cut it out of white cardstock. And now I'm just taking a dauber from my stash and some turquoise ink just to make it stand out from the background. I think the sign is super cute. And I just used an alcohol ink background for the background of my sign. And now I am assembling my little starfish, which I had also cut out of from my alcohol inked background. And I kind of scattered these around the octopus as large embellishments. I think they're really cute. This octopus, even though he doesn't jiggle, I think he's pretty awesome looking. So after I glued down my starfish, I am finishing up with just some clear enamel dots, or whatever you want to call them. And there you can see how I didn't attach the legs, and I think it's more cool to not have them attached. It just creates a little bit something extra. And so there he is, my non-dancing, non-jiggling octopus. He's pretty cute. All right, let's use this red and green background. And this time I am going to make him dance. I love these colors together. They were a surprising combination to me. And I definitely want to put him on a white background. Him or her, sorry. But I want my white background to have a little bit of texture. So I'm using this Cloudscape die set. And again, it's going to be mainly white, and it's going to be hard for you to see on camera, but there will be some very subtle texture in the background. So I'm using these clouds, but if you put them upside down, they become waves. So I'm going to cut 3 layers of waves out. And so this is my first layer. It's like the highest layer. And now I'm just figuring out how much lower to make my second layer. So there's my second layer. And there's my third layer. And now I'm just going to glue all of those onto the full-size white panel. And by the way, that white panel I had already cut down so that I would have a margin on my card. And you'll see that in a second. So I'm attaching the 2 front layers of the octopus together with glue, just like I did before. So I picked a pretty bold colored card base for this. All right, to make him jiggle, super easy. You just take that bottom layer and you put a foam dot right in that circle. Couldn't be any easier. And then you take the little sticky back off that foam dot and you stick the rest of the octopus on there. And then the back piece jiggles and the front piece stays stationary. It's pretty easy and it's pretty cute. All right, so I'm not going to waste any of my alcohol ink background, so I cut the word hugs from the green part, and I used the Be Bold uppercase alphabet for that. This is one of my favorite alphabet die sets. I'm just lining up the letters at the bottom. I'm using the white panel as a way to line up my letters and make sure they're even. And I'm going to take some low tack tape and just grab them, trying not to move them. But, you know, you can flip them over and make sure that they're all still straight before you glue them. So that's what I'm doing here. Making sure they all still look good. And then I can go ahead and put glue on the back. And still using the tape, I'm adjusting, and then I pull my T-square in, and I can still kind of adjust the letters to make sure they're perfectly even. And there they are. And then I added some clear dots again. And again, I was just pointing out, I positioned the clear dots so that they wouldn't get in the way of that the jiggly tentacles. This sending is just a stamp from my stash. And I love that pop of black on the card. And there he is. I love this monthly club. The octopus is just so cute. I have another card in mind using the jellyfish, so you might see another video from me soon. I thank you so much for visiting me today, and stay tuned for more videos. Thanks. Bye.